Our chalice lighting marks the beginning of our worship service. I will light mine and share our reading, and I invite you to light yours if you have one. And if you'd like, you can use the chat to post the name of the street name where the chalice was lit. Our chalice lighting is by Marshall Hawkins. We light this chalice as a symbolic act to inaugurate a time when rituals have meaning, stories tell the truth, and the spirit speaks louder than words of the transcendent mystery of creation in our place in this great universe.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ellen Quaadgras, and I'm the minister here at Westminster, and I want to begin by welcoming all of you. It's great to see you, and I also want to acknowledge that yesterday was Juneteenth, which just a few days ago was formally recognized as a federal holiday, although it has long been recognized informally as the end of slavery in the 1800s. On the one hand, grateful for progress. On the other hand, it is a reminder that there is still more to do, or rather to undo, the legacy of inequality and racism that slavery left in its wake. So may this holiday be a reminder to continue to learn, but also to act, to change systems and foster true justice. And this month's theme is play. On this gorgeous June day, on Father's Day, let us take into our hearts the gift of play, accessible to all and the most delightful of spiritual practices. Let us allow ourselves to be drawn more deeply into a spirit of playful, joyful, meaningful worship with these words by Amy Mackenzie Quinn. Welcome to this common, sacred time and place. Common because we are all welcome. Sacred because here we transform the ordinary and attend to the profound. We carry with us our regrets, our doubts, our fears, as well as our stories and laughter. May they inspire our worship. Above all, may we each meet what we need most to find on this day, in this common, sacred space. And with those words, I invite you to join me in singing our opening hymn. Feel free to belt it out at home. It's Morning Has Broken. Let us join together for our unison affirmation, which was just posted in the chat. Love is the spirit of this church, and service our mission. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. One way we help one another is by simply being present to one another in a whole host of ways, and in particular, by being present to what is good and what is hard in each other's lives. So this is our time during the service when any who would like to share something that is on your heart this morning in the chat, something good that is lifting you up, or something hard that is weighing you down. Let us gather our hearts and minds in a spirit of prayer or meditation. Spirit, within us and around us, we thank you for the gift of kinship and this time to simply be reflective. We are on a journey, alone and together, in our hearts and in our community, in our youth and in our sundown. We may not always be sure of where we are going, but we are moving forward in space and time. Spirit, walk with us. We are on our way. With humility, we ask for guidance, for a steady hand when we falter. May we be willing to be shown the way, both when we are blinded by fog and when the path appears clear and bright. May we be willing to help others, and just as importantly, to understand when we can no longer be helpful. May we feel support when we are in pain. May we find forgiveness when we misstep. May we surrender our complacency and find strength to confront challenge and change. May we embrace our siblings around the world and close to home who are suffering anguish and loss. May we find a place for their sorrows in our hearts. May we be grateful for the rich gift of our families, for children, for close communities, for this church. Let us acknowledge fathers who anchor and nurture in the middle of everything. Spirit, who is love, we are on a journey alone and together. May we feel your presence as we go on our way. Let us take in our song in response as we reflect, meditate, or pray.
Our June Share the Plate recipient is Fang. Fang organizes with our community to build a decolonized world free of prisons and police, where systems of oppression are uprooted and healed while taking action to avert the worst impacts of climate change. Fang believes in a diversity of nonviolent tactics, from community organizing and coalition building to escalated direct action. Fang prioritizes building real, lasting relationships with people and organizers across different communities and movements. The other half of your offering goes to support the good work of this community. You can donate using the link that is now being put in the chat. The offering will now be given and received with gratitude. Our reading is by Carol Alman Morton. On Father's Day, we honor those people who have been teachers, confidants, and friends. We acknowledge that it is not biology that makes a parent, but love and attention. For those of us who have lost a father or a child, we hold their memories in our hearts. For all of us who are fathers, we ask for continued help in discerning how best to care for our children, whether they are 5 or 50 years old. May the strands of relationship between ourselves and all of creation grow ever stronger. May all of us, no matter what our place in the cycle of life, experience, nurture, and love. And may we pass on that love to those we encounter on our paths.
Not unlike Mother's Day, Father's Day can be a blessed, heartwarming day, or it can be colored by difficult feelings. While some fathers eagerly await homemade cards, that mini necktie keychain, or the latest in tools for the grill, it is not like that for all. Life is hard. Good plans go astray. And situations don't always turn out the way they were first envisioned. Not all fathers have the relationship with their children of all ages that they wish they had. And while some may be feeling full-hearted in our appreciation for our own dads and all the ways they are or have been present to us, some may also be missing our fathers who are no longer with us for one reason or another. Others may be angry at things he did they wished he hadn't, or disappointed at things he didn't do they wished he had. As a colleague of mine said, for some, this day may be more about making peace with our fathers than celebrating them. And it's all heightened because Father's Day lifts up our highest expectations of fathers. We expect them to be strong and tender, powerful and sensitive, hardworking and always competent, but also lighthearted and fun. Whatever our actual experience of fathers and fatherhood, that picture is one against which few real human beings can compare. Fathers are just people like the rest of us, with their hopes and dreams and life challenges, as well as confusions and shortcomings. I think sometimes about the fact that I am now a couple of decades older than my parents were when I was a kid. They were in their 30s when I was in elementary school, and when I look back at who I was at 30 and the struggles I had and the things I didn't understand, I realize it's amazing how well my parents did parenting me. But when you are a kid, you don't have that perspective. Fathers can seem larger than life when you're little, because when you're little, they are. At one time, our fathers, our parents, were everything. It's not a coincidence God is referred to as Heavenly Father or Heavenly Mother. That father role from the eyes of a little one is very, very big, for good or for ill. Sometimes it is only in hindsight that we can begin to understand something about who our fathers really were, or what they had to deal with in their lives, to begin to see them just as people in their own right. For many of us, it is a lifelong process to reintegrate, reimagine, re-understand our parents. And whether we love Father's Day or hate it, it is a chance to take a second look, a chance to revisit our own memories of our fathers and father figures, and maybe even rethink how we want to be in relationship with young people in our lives today. So, with that in mind, I share 3 stories with you today that are a chance to peek behind the curtain of the mythology to more of the reality underneath. In honor of our monthly theme, I included a couple stories with an element of play, but lighthearted or not, these stories are all very true. They were first told on a moth stage and were adapted for this service here today. The first story I want to share is from Annalise Razik, whose life was changed, as she said, by a large black man named Bill with a booming voice and snow white hair. Annalise's biological father had been diagnosed with a mental illness, and as she put it, there was a lot of insanity going on in their house. Eventually, her mother realized it was time to move out. Annalise was 7 at the time, and it was sad and horrible, she said. And she felt sad and lost until Bill came along. He was a cook, he was a writer, he became a stay-at-home dad. He had raised all his siblings when he was growing up because his mom worked, and when he moved in, they now had rules in the house. Annalise and Bill had what she described as a fiery relationship. She was always pushing the boundaries he would set, and frequently conversations would end, "I hate you, I hate you," to which he would respond, "That's okay, baby, because I love you," which she found infuriating. One regular field of combat for them was dinner. Annalise, like many kids, hated most vegetables. But unlike many of the rest of us, she was both determined and creative in her attempts to avoid them. She had several clever schemes up her sleeve, including a sleight of hand into a napkin to discard after the meal was over. Her ingenious plan was foiled, however, when Bill caught on and initiated napkin checks after dinner. She then moved on to the use of pockets, although this had its complications when it came to vegetables in sauce. One night, Bill had prepared her least favorite vegetable, Brussels sprouts. There were 3 of them on her plate. I am not eating them, she thought to herself. At one point during dinner, her brother got into an argument with her parents, and she saw her chance. She asked permission to go to the bathroom, got the nod. This was brilliant. Why wait till the end of dinner? She slid the offending vegetables into her napkin, made for the bathroom, plopped them into the bowl, and was ready to flush when bam, 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 she heard a knock on the door. "Don't you flush that toilet, you'll be grounded for a month," came Bill's booming voice. In desperation, she stuck her hand in the toilet to fish them out. Oh yes, right from the bowl, and was looking frantically around for where she could put them in a bathroom the size of a postage stamp, while bam, 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 she kept hearing Bill at the door. She then spotted the window, which happened to have a glass jar full of bath soap and a dusty flower right there by the window. She quickly knocked out the screen, opened the window, and accidentally knocked out the jar as well. It made a crash, but she thought Bill probably couldn't hear it. She threw the Brussels sprouts out the window, closed it, and opened the bathroom door. He came in and looked in the toilet tank. He was good. Opened the linen closet, looked through the towels, and he was just getting ready to leave when he noticed the window, stuck his head out, and hung there for the longest minute of her life. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Bill pulls his head back in, looks at her sternly. "Go to your room," he says. It wasn't until years later he told her the reason he was hanging out there so long was because he was trying to contain his laughter. Because there, 2 floors down on the driveway was a sea of broken glass, a big plastic flower, millions of little blue balls of soap, and 3 Brussels sprouts. Just before telling this story at the Moth, Annalise had gone to visit Bill in a nursing home. He is suffering from Alzheimer's now, and so she doesn't know how much he understands. But at this last visit, when she was there, she said, "Hey, Bill, guess what I had for dinner last night? Brussels sprouts." And he laughed. Our second story is a little less humorous and playful. In fact, you could say it's more about the lack of humor and play in one boy's life. But it's also about the scripts we get from our parents, from our fathers, and how or whether we choose to follow them or not. The story is by and about Tim King, whose parents, he said, gave him everything, from horseback riding lessons to elaborate holidays and lots of love. They wanted him to have the best upbringing he could possibly have, and this was in part so he could fulfill a dream they had for him. First Black president of the United States. Now, that spot did ultimately get taken by someone else, but it was part of Tim's vision for himself for a long time, even after he was offered and accepted a job as a teacher in an inner city school. It was a bit of a detour, he knew, but he also imagined how a job like that could work really well with an eventual presidential promotional campaign. Tim King, he cares about kids. So he took the job. One summer, he noticed this kid who would come to school really early and stay really late. His name was Keith. He said he was there to paint with a bunch of other kids, but Tim noticed he was there a lot for really long days, not just through the summer, but into the fall. Tim figured he really liked school, although he also didn't understand how anyone could like school that much. So he started keeping an eye on him. Eventually, Keith started talking. He would stop by Tim's office and tell him what was going on. Then he started asking for a couple bucks here and there, which Tim would give him. Then he started asking for more. Ultimately, Tim asked him what it was for. Laundry came the answer. Tim was skeptical. I mean, what teenage boy does his own laundry? But he let it go. Over time, Keith was coming by more often and talking more and coming out of his shell, and Tim found himself coming out of his own shell too. Until one night, Tim got a call from Keith. He was in hysterics, and he asked Tim if he could help. "My mom just died," he said. Tim rushed over to his house, which turned out to be an apartment over a liquor store. It's pitch black. The electricity has been shut off. His mom had been battling a drug addiction, and she had lost. They gathered Keith's few belongings, and Tim brought Keith to a friend's house. The next day, he helped him figure out where he could live temporarily. They began hanging out more. This kind of experience, as Tim said, brings people together. But every time, Tim would drop Keith off at someone else's house and then go home to his own. Except one day, they were sitting in Tim's car trying to work out where Keith would live next, and Keith turns to Kim and says, "Why can't I just live with you? Why can't you be my dad?" At which moment Tim thought, "Are you crazy? Of course you can't live with me. Of course I can't be your dad. You don't fit into the plan. I'm going to be the first Black president of the United States. You can't move in with me." He had also put Keith in a box, he realized, and it said, "Poor Black boy inside. Handle with care." And he didn't allow himself to get too close to that box, too close to Keith. All these thoughts went through his head in a matter of seconds, quite literally. And when he came out of this kind of fog, there was Keith, still looking at him expectantly. And Tim found words coming out of his mouth. "Yes, yes, you can live with me. Yes, I will be your dad." And at that moment, Tim said, he changed. He felt right. He just felt right. Although, as he also said, what he should have felt was terrified. Because when Keith moved into Tim's house, it wasn't like just one elephant coming through. It was a herd of elephants, he said. Keith took over. It was really, really hard living with him. Keith, who had had to live as an adult, all of a sudden had a chance to be a kid again. And Tim, who had been living like a kid with a bank account, suddenly had to be an adult. But they made it through. Keith calls Tim Dad, and Tim refers to Keith as his son. Keith has since graduated from high school and college and chose to become a teacher, like his dad. In fact, they both work in a network of charter public high schools called Urban Prep that Tim started to make sure all the Keiths in the world were taken care of. He says sometimes people appreciate him for taking Keith under his wing. You changed Keith's life, they say. Tim says to them, he changed mine. While Tim was helping Keith grow from boyhood to manhood, Keith was helping Tim grow. As Tim said, Keith was helping him become a better man. Our third and final story is by and about a young adult man named C.J. Hunt, for whom, as he said, some of the best memories of his life came from what he called his bachelor days. They went like this. There he is, 6 years old, cruising down the highway, and in the driver's seat was his best friend and bachelor buddy, his dad. They are moving their lives from Boston to New York, and for the whole 4-hour drive, they are looking each other, have the tape deck turned up, and they are singing, "Ooh, baby, baby, it's a wild world. Hard to get by, just upon a smile." They played that tape so much that summer, he said they actually broke it. That was a thing that happened back then. And then there was their anthem, "Against the Wind." We were running against the wind. We were young and strong and still running against the wind. That was the soundtrack to their bachelor days. The place they were moving on Long Island, the house wasn't yet ready, so they spent the summer in a cramped little Brooklyn apartment, living like 22-year-olds. They had like one pan and 2 mugs out of which they would drink instant soup as their meals. They had no furniture except an inflatable bed, which they would share, and each night they'd have to blow it up, but taking turns to make sure no one passed out. The best part, he said, was that they could eat cereal whenever they wanted. Cap'n Crunch for dinner, son? Done. That was their life. And like 2 bros moving into an apartment would make a point to survey the block for bars, they would cruise the neighborhood to draw a mental map of every toy and comic book store in a 10-mile radius. And in there was something better than women to a bachelor man. There were action figures. So 6-year-old CJ and his father would burst in like 2 robber barons. "Everybody freeze. Me and the boy, we're looking for an action figure. Hand it over, put it in the bag, and we'll be on our way." And then he would put me on his back and we'd be gone like that, CJ said. "That's how I remember that summer," he said, "new action figure in hand, on my way to Cap'n Crunch dinner, riding on the back of my father, just the 2 of us." And it was just the 2 of them, because CJ's mom had just died. She had been diagnosed with lung cancer that December. She had made it just far enough to see him turn 6. And then the summer began. When looking back on that time, CJ said he was struck by the dichotomy of what he remembers as these golden bachelor days and the truth, the actual harrowing truth of what had happened. Two guys. One just lost his mom. One just lost his wife. Like finding an old cassette tape that you made and you love this thing and you dust it off and you realize there's a B-side that you never even listened to. And CJ realized that their soundtrack was actually his dad's morning songs, or the songs he used to make sure he could keep going in the day. CJ said he must have thought 1,000 times over the years about those golden summer days on his dad's back. Only now had he begun to think about the story of the one doing the carrying. I wonder if he was scared, he said. I wonder how he knew what to do when everything started falling apart. I wonder where in our little apartment he would go to cry so I couldn't see it. I wonder how he could turn what should have been the most devastating time of my life into something I remember as my best days. Just taking pieces of rubble and making a world just for me, right on the fly. CJ ends with this. Now, I'm a real bachelor, drinking far more mug soup than I care to admit. I wonder, what kind of man will I become? And then I realize, I already know. On this Father's Day, let's take a peek behind the curtain. Take a second look. Listen to the B-side of the tape. Imagine what life may have looked like through our Father's eyes. And however they did, good or not so good, with what was handed to them. May we create some room for whatever was. Find some fresh perspective and maybe some compassion for them and for our younger selves, so that we can create some space for whatever might still be, and for whoever we might still become. Amen.
With many names.
Our closing words are by Reverend Barbara Peskin. Because of those who came before, we are. In spite of their failings, we believe. Because of and in spite of the horizons of their vision, we too dream. Let us go, remembering to praise, to live in the moment, to love mightily, to bow to the mystery.